would you go on a board, would you go on a department and get qualified out? I mean, it may not be coming up, it may not happen, but would you see yourself being able to take a role in government if asked?
I think, as you say, that could be a moot point, in that my understanding is that many, if not all, of the department positions have been filled. It's a heavily debated topic at the moment, and something that I'm very mindful was one of the recommendations in the Lisbon report. So I think it's actually very difficult on the outside looking in to say whether or not MLCs should have department roles. My personal view is that if asked by a minister to add to a department, I would be happy to consider that and to participate in an appropriate manner. And I think it would be in very much a non-executive capacity, so not necessarily involved in the running and voting of the department, but sharing expertise and being able to exercise some of that oversight and control from within, because it's much easier to do that from within than from without. So it is a qualified answer, Paul, but with the appropriate qualifications and with the appropriate restrictions, yes, I would, but it would have to be non-executive.
Thank you.
Similar to Craig, I share a similar view. Interestingly enough, I spoke with one of the MHKs where he explained where the role of an MLC in a department was very useful, and I found it very interesting, where they were sort of they were creating more rounded answers. You had the MHK, who has to answer to their constituency, and you had the civil servants who have to answer to a whole other different set of parameters, where the person who was the MLC, who was in the department, was able to kind of facilitate more agreements and more compromise between both competing interests. And I felt that that was quite an interesting way to look at the role of a MLC within a department. But I think initially, for a year and 3 months, it would be pretty hard to make any kind of significant impact initially as an MLC within that short amount of time. However, if there's a certain task or project that has about that time schedule, then yeah, it would definitely be something that I'd be open to.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Having met with most of the members of the Keys, I'm very aware of the different views that exist between them. In the job description for the MLC role, it specifically says that they may be called on to take roles in government, which presumably would mean predominantly within departments. But many members have said they don't think it's a good idea to be in a department. Others have said this is a very small parliament. We need people to do the work, to share in the work. Some MLCs have successfully been involved in departments. Some have identified that they want to be non-voting members. Some are only prepared to take on the role if they think it can add value. So I'm open to advice on that. It may be that the 15-month time limit actually determines what's possible and what isn't. But the one thing I would say is that I would not want a role in the department to reduce the capacity to provide scrutiny, which is a key part of the job description coming through. And that would be perhaps a prime determinant what opportunities for scrutiny might be lost if you're spending a couple of days a week in a department. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. For me, it's about getting the best skills across the whole of Tynwald. I don't feel particularly strongly that MLCs should be in departments, but equally I don't feel they should be discouraged from being members either. I think it's crucially about getting the best outcomes for Tynwald, which in turn gets the best for the people of the island. From a personal perspective, if asked by a minister or department, I would consider whether I felt I could add value, and if I could, I would be willing to. But equally, I don't think it should be the position of an MLC to push themselves onto a department. From a scrutiny point of view, as I say, I think everybody's quite au fait, certainly on the panel, with the role of the scrutiny element to the position. For me, if you are on a department and can add value before the scrutiny process or earlier on in the scrutiny process, which stops legislation going down and time being wasted later on, I think that's a positive thing. So if that means that an MLC can offer that early on in the process as a member of the department, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing if it saves time in the long run. But from a personal perspective, if asked, I would consider it, and if I felt I could add value, I would certainly consider it.
Thank you.
I think, from my perspective, I have a range of skill sets that might be of use. That doesn't mean to say that I should end up on a voting member in a department or on committee. However, if there was a project that was coming up that actually my skill set could be used for, then certainly if asked I would consider it, and similar to what several of the colleagues have said, if I can add some value then I would do that. But I do still believe that the main role is to provide that time, that energy, that diligence to the scrutiny, which is maybe one of the areas where the MHKs are busy doing a lot of other things as well as the work they do with legislation. And I think it's very useful to have a group of people who perhaps aren't quite so stuck in doing stuff for their either constituents or for departments.
So make that clear, you would go on to Parliament or not?
Probably not, but if I was, but if there was a project that I could support and I had the right skill set.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Bill.
Thank you. No, my personal view is that MHKs should lead on policy, so I wouldn't sit in the department. However, if there was technical bills, I would be happy to help the department. So I took through a large number of bills for Treasury in the last 5 years, some of which were quite complex, and I think my previous experience helped. So you wouldn't sit in the department, you would be there taking a bill when a policy has been agreed. I also recognise, though, we're in a small place, and we all need to put our shoulder to the wheel. So I'm delighted to serve in some of the new boards that are being set up, which I'm very excited about. The housing board, I think that there is a housing crisis in this island. I've got previous experience, extensive experience in mortgages and other aspects. I think I could add real value to that board to get some tangible help out there for people. Climate change board, again, something I'm passionate about. Turn that kind of these lofty ideals into practical things for people. I'd be delighted to help with that. Or the economic board. Again, I served on the economic recovery group in Treasury for 5 years. Got a really good understanding about the Manx economy. So I think that add value across 1 or 2 or 3 of those boards, in addition to the scrutiny, which I am absolutely clear is the key focus of this role. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. On to go. All the way up. Get rid of all the... And finally.
It's hard being the last person, isn't it?
It's better than being the first one.
It is, yeah. I think I agree with Paul, really, that I think the primary role is to be the scrutineer, and that's where I would want to invest my time. However, the boards that Bill mentioned, housing, I think we've got a bit of synergy there, Paul. Climate change, that's where I think I could contribute. So if I could contribute and I was asked to, then I would do so willingly.